Every few years, we see a new national security strategy land on the desks of policymakers. And, historically, these documents are, well, they're immense, they're dense.
And frankly, a little dull. They're written to be so broad that they can cover almost any scenario without really committing to one.
Exactly. More of a continuation of policy than a change.
But this new NSS, the one released in November 2025, it is not that document. Not at all. From page 1, it's presented as a severe course correction.
It sounds like it's trying to rewrite the whole playbook.
It is. It's actively discarding strategies that have been in place for the last, 30 years?
Okay, so let's get into this. We've gone through the source material, the key excerpts from NSS 2025, and our mission here, for you, is to really understand this pivot. The document itself gives us a definition of strategy.
It does. It calls it a concrete, realistic plan that explains the essential connection between ends and means.
So that's our job. What does the U.S. want? What means does it have? And how does this new plan connect the two?
Well, it starts with a pretty sharp diagnosis of where things went astray, as they put it. It argues that after the Cold War, the U.S. just tried to do way too much.
The strategy was too broad.
Too broad, and it didn't really define what American interests were. It was all, vague platitudes.
And it makes a direct link, a crucial one, between that foreign policy sprawl and damage at home. It says that American elites, they overestimated America's ability to fund everything at once.
Everything. A massive administrative state, global military burdens, and at the same time, a huge welfare state.
That leads to the core political critique in the document, doesn't it?
It's the whole foundation. That U.S. policy made these misguided and destructive bets on globalism that, in their view, just hollowed out the middle class and the industrial base.
So this isn't just a foreign policy document.
Yeah.
It's a plan for national economic renewal, but framed as a security issue.
That's the perfect way to put it. Which brings us to the guiding philosophy. It's all built around 2 words, America first.
And they spend a lot of time defining what that means, trying to escape the usual labels.
They do. The language is fascinating. It says, the strategy is, and I'm quoting here, pragmatic without being pragmatist, realistic without being realist, and it goes on, principled without being idealistic, muscular without being hawkish, and restrained without being dovish.
That's a brilliant bit of political framing. It basically rejects every box you could try to put it in.
It gives them maximum room to maneuver. They're essentially saying, we are not bound by any of the old schools of thought. Our only motivation is, quote, what works for America.
And from that philosophy, they pull out 2 main principles. The first one is pretty familiar, peace through strength.
Right. The idea that strength deters conflict and that having that strength, being respected for it, is what actually allows you to solve conflicts. You can't negotiate from a position of weakness.
So a strong military, a strong economy, and advanced technology, they're all tied together as the prerequisite for any diplomacy.
Then comes the second principle, which is maybe the biggest change here, a predisposition to non-interventionism.
A high bar for getting involved in anything.
An extremely high bar. It actually cites the Declaration of Independence, saying that all nations have a right to a separate and equal station and should, handle their own affairs.
Using the Declaration is a powerful move. It's a foundational argument for getting away from the forever wars and nation-building projects that the strategy says have drained the U.S.
It's a formal retreat from being the world's policeman. And this is where the NSS makes its boldest claim.
Oh, this is the part about the president of peace.
It is. The document asserts the president has cemented his legacy as the president of peace by using this combination of strength and restraint. It claims he secured peace in 8 different conflicts in just 8 months.
8 conflicts in 8 months. And the list is, well, it's audacious. I mean, it mentions the DRC and Rwanda, but then it claims peace between Israel and Iran.
And Pakistan and India.
2 of the most intractable conflicts in modern history. The document doesn't give a lot of detail, but it implies this unconventional diplomacy wasn't just about talking.
No, it implies using the full weight of U.S. financial and economic power. Basically, the threat of complete isolation for anyone who didn't come to the table.
A perfect example of the philosophy in action. Use your strength to force an opening for peace. Then there's the last part of the philosophy. The primacy of nations and sovereignty.
Yes, this is a core ideological point. The world works best, it argues, when nations look out for their own interests and protect their sovereignty, especially from the sovereignty-sapping incursions of the most intrusive transnational organizations.
A clear shot across the bow at places like the UN or the World Economic Forum.
And that defense of sovereignty comes home, too. It says it's a national security issue to stop foreign entities from trying to censor our discourse or limit free speech inside the U.S.
Okay, so that's the how. Strong, pragmatic, non-interventionist.
Ah.
Now let's get to where the rubber meets the road. The core priorities. This is the what?
And the first one hits with maximum impact. Priority 1 is the end of mass migration.
The document is not subtle about this.
Not at all. It says, flat out, the era of mass migration is over. It redefines border security as the primary element of national security.
It's framing it as an existential issue for the Republic.
Absolutely. The goal is a world where countries stop rather than facilitate destabilizing population flows. It elevates border control to the highest level of international strategy.
And right after that, priority 2, economic strength and reindustrialization.
This is the bedrock, the source of all American power, its economy, its military, its tech.
And the number one goal there is rebuilding the industrial base. It's explicit about reshoring production, bringing jobs back.
And it's not just a hope. It advocates for using tariffs strategically, using new tech to make it happen, all to raise wages for American workers. It's the direct answer to that opening critique of globalism.
And to power all that new industry.
You need energy. So restoring American energy dominance is a parallel priority. Oil, gas, coal, nuclear, all of it.
This section includes a direct rejection of what it calls disastrous climate change and net zero ideologies.
Yes, it argues those policies have crippled European economies and are a threat to the U.S. The logic is simple. You can't have industrial strength without cheap, abundant American energy.
The third priority feels like a tectonic shift in how the U.S. deals with its allies. Burden sharing.
Or burden shifting, really. It's the formal announcement that the U.S. will no longer be the sole security provider for the world.
And this is where they introduce the Hague Commitment. What is that exactly?
It's a new global standard for defense spending. It pledges NATO countries to spend 5% of GDP on defense.
5%. I mean, just to give you some context, the current NATO goal is 2%, and many allies don't even meet that.
Exactly. We are talking about more than doubling, sometimes tripling, the defense budgets of major economies.
And this isn't a suggestion.
No. The NSS says allies have endorsed and must now meet this. And it's transactional. Countries that step up get rewarded with better trade deals, access to technology, and so on. If you want to be a partner, you have to pay up.
Okay, let's turn to geography in Section 3. The NSS makes a point of not trying to cover the whole world, right?
Yeah.
It just focuses on core interests.
It does. And it starts close to home in the Western Hemisphere. This is about reasserting the Monroe Doctrine.
And it gives it a new name, the Trump Corollary. So, for our listener, the old Monroe Doctrine was about keeping European powers out of the Americas. What does this new version do?
Its goal is to deny non-hemispheric competitors. And we're talking about China, Russia, Iran, the ability to put forces here or to control critical assets like ports or power grids.
And it sounds very actionable.
Very. It calls for working with allies to control migration and neutralize cartels, even using lethal force where necessary. And it plans to use U.S. financial power to expose debt traps and espionage from other countries offering aid.
Okay, across the Pacific now to Asia. This is framed almost entirely as an economic fight.
Right. The section title is literally Win the Economic Future. It says the U.S. made a huge mistake assuming that if you just open markets to China, it would become a responsible partner.
Instead, the document argues China just got rich and powerful while undermining the system.
But the strategy points to the massive economic counterweight the U.S. has. The U.S. economy plus its allies in the region. It's more than half the world's economy. A $65 trillion economic bloc. That is the ultimate tool.
And the top military priority is still deterring a conflict over Taiwan.
Paramount. Because of semiconductors, of course, but also its strategic location. And keeping the South China Sea open, where a third of global shipping goes through, is right up there as well.
All right, let's move to Europe. We already talked about the Hague Commitment, but the document's overall assessment of the continent is, it's pretty brutal.
It is stark. It notes Europe's share of global GDP has fallen from 25% down to 14%. But then it raises the real and more stark prospect of civilizational erasure.
Civilizational erasure, that is not the kind of language you expect in a security document.
Not at all. And it blames that prospect on migration, on cratering birth rates, and on transnational bodies undermining sovereignty. The goal isn't just security. It's to help Europe regain civilizational self-confidence.
And on Ukraine and Russia.
The stated goal is an expeditious cessation of hostilities, stop the war quickly. The priority is to stabilize Europe's economy and reestablish some stability with Russia. It even notes that the administration is at odds with European officials over what it calls their unrealistic expectations for the war.
So a major policy divide there.
A huge one.
Finally, let's look at the Middle East and Africa, a big shift here as well.
A huge shift. The document basically says the heavy focus on the Middle East is a relic of the past because the U.S. is now a net energy exporter.
So that historic reliance is gone.
It's gone. So policy is shifting to partnerships in new industries, nuclear energy, AI, defense tech. And it explicitly says no more hectoring Gulf monarchies about their traditions.
And it mentions one specific military action.
Operation Midnight Hammer, which it claims significantly degraded Iran's nuclear program back in June of 2025. It's presented as the model. Decisive, limited, and focused on a single strategic goal.
And Africa.
Africa needs to move from an aid paradigm to an investment and growth paradigm. It's seen as a critical arena for economic competition, mainly with China.
And the investments are targeted.
Very targeted. Energy, U.S.-backed nuclear and natural gas and critical minerals. It's all about securing resources and building influence through finance and technology, not aid.
So what does this all mean? Let's try to synthesize this. For you, the listener, the central message seems to be this. American global leadership is shifting. It's moving away from military intervention.
And moving toward using its economic, technological, and financial power as the primary tools. Things like preserving the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency. That's a national security tool now.
The whole strategy is built on this idea that America's free market system is its greatest advantage, but that it can't win by default. It has to be actively weaponized.
Weaponized is a good word for it. Using AI, quantum computing, digital finance. One line that stood out to me was the goal to bind the currencies of low-income countries more closely to the dollar.
So it's an economic foreign policy.
Precisely. The argument is that you win the global competition by proving that U.S. goods, U.S. tech, U.S. partnership, it's all just a far better buy in the long run. Better products without the authoritarian strings attached.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you. The strategy highlights this huge gap between cheap, low-cost drones and missiles and the incredibly expensive systems you need to defend against them. It calls for a national effort to innovate low-cost defenses and modernize the industrial base fast.
A pivot to high-volume, low-cost military tech.
Exactly. So here's the question for you to mull over. What are the concrete examples you see in the commercial world around you, in supply chains, in automation, in manufacturing, that already show this pivot? Is this new NSS already being reflected in how the things you buy every day are made?
A great way to connect this high-level policy back to daily life.
Something to think about until our next deep dive. We'll see you then.